Welcome to First Light, the podcast where we explore what it really means to rise and transform. I'm your host, Chris Keller, and today's guest is someone who's built a reputation for helping lawyers do just that: rise above the chaos, transform their mindset, and lead with purpose. Charley Mann is the founder of Law Firm Alchemy and host of the podcast They Don't Teach This in Law School. He's coached hundreds of law firm owners through leadership, marketing, mindset, and scaling strategies, helping them shift from operator to true CEO. In this episode, we dig into the identity shift required to grow your firm, why data without vision is useless, and how to build business that works for you, not the other way around. If you're ready to scale smarter, lead stronger, and rise to the next version of yourself, this conversation is for you. Let's get into it. Charley, I'm so privileged to have you on the podcast today. I know you are the founder of Law Firm Alchemy. You're the co-founder of Red Kraken Creative. You're a podcast host, an author, a coach, and a strategist. And I know you're gonna have so much to add today. So for those who may not know you or had the opportunity to meet you yet, why don't you tell the audience who you are, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So, like you said, Charley Mann, I'm a coach, I'm a strategist, I'm an entrepreneur, and I love working with law firms. I'm all in on it, man. I've been working with law firms, both in, on, for, and with law firms and law firm owners for over 15 years at this point. Different practice areas, different sizes of practice, different types of business models, people who are at the top. And that's actually the biggest source of joy for me is like, I have worked with people who are like the Chris Kellers of the world with this big, awesome firm that you've built, multiple managing partners. You have a data engineer on your team, like a lot of cool stuff that you've done. But I also work and have worked with people who run that $500,000 shop and they're figuring out their boutique practice or how do they get their first seven figures or scale their seven figures. And one thing I know that you and I align on, Chris, fundamentally, and I'm sure we're gonna dig into it here, is all of those transformations. Well, revenue is a metric that we monitor. Well, revenue per employee, total number of clients, those are all numbers that we monitor. If we look at the master way to manipulate those numbers, to change those numbers, it comes through the person that started the firm and has that ownership and accountability of growing that firm. I mean, I love entrepreneurs and I love law firm owners. So my favorite people in the world are entrepreneurial law firm owners.
Well, you're not an attorney by trade, so kind of take
Yeah.
us through how you became a leading voice in law firm growth, kind of what brought you into this space.
Yeah, man. So when I graduated college, I was a theater major, right? So I know that you had Jamie, and I can't remember his last name. It starts
Jamie
with an
Holland.
H, like
Jamie
Jamie
Holland.
Holland. Yeah. So, shout out to my fellow theater person, Ryan Serhant, the massive real estate agent in New York, also former theater major. Like there's a few of us out here who are doing some fun things. And coming out of college, even though I loved acting, it was a passion I found in high school that sort of like someone finding their sport helps them get their life on track. Theater actually helped me get my life on track in high school. And so I went to college and, studied my passion, both the best and worst thing that you can possibly do. But coming out of college, I was dating my then girlfriend, now wife. And more than anything else, Chris, I wanted to be a father and a husband. And I didn't think that, and not to be too glib about it, but I didn't think that waiting tables was going to be the career path for me, which is, by the way, I always tip at least like 25%, often 40%, because I'm like, that person might be one of my fellow theater majors right there. Let's take good care of them. Let's give back to the community. And so I decided, let's go find like a real job. And I actually ended up finding 3 real jobs. I worked at the same time coming out of college. But one of them, and certainly the most important one, was for this guy, Ben Glass, who owns Ben Glass Law and his company, Great Legal Marketing. And you fast forward many, many years, and I started running Great Legal Marketing. So in addition to having done marketing for his law firm, I started actively coaching firms and running that company. And then the point in time came, you're around entrepreneurs. You always have that feeling of like, there's something like messed up about me. I don't think I'm a great employee and something's got to be fixed here. And so I set a timeline for myself of when I wanted to own my own thing. And that could come through different paths, co-ownership, solo venture, launching, buying in, whatever. And ultimately it came to, all right, I'm starting my own path, coaching law firm owners directly. I've been doing that with my own company, Law Firm Alchemy, for the past 2 years, which I love doing. And we recently co-founded Red Kraken Creative that does email marketing for law firms.
So what kind of inspired you to, create Law Firm Alchemy to go into this 7 stages of law firm leadership? It's kind of from theater to marketing and coaching law firm owners is a crazy stretch.
Yeah, what it was is Like one of the themes that exists throughout all of it, Chris, is pattern recognition. So like in theater, I had a theater teacher who told me that, if you have someone ask what you do, say that you're a behavioral scientist, right? Because your whole trade is studying behaviors and trying to redisplay them on stage to tell a larger story. And my mother, who was a mathematician, got her master's in mathematics, was an engineer for John Deere for some time. My father, who's always just kind of been natural with numbers. Patterns are sort of a thing in our family, and I think we take some pride in our ability for strong pattern recognition. So you mentioned, for example, that 7 stages of the law firm leadership. I look at something like that, or being truly, as far as I saw, one of the absolute first people in the profession who was tracking revenue per employee and building specific statistics around scaling using that number, and a host of other frameworks. And I loved being able to identify patterns and helping, especially law firm owners, see patterns that they, as soon as they had that framework, they go, oh, I get, yes, that, thank you for putting language to what I am experiencing. And now, much like in, say, a recovery program, when you can actually admit the issue and you have the structure for handling the issue, now you can start doing something about it. Because if you know the pattern, you can also disrupt the pattern. And that's something that I have loved to do. Like maybe we'll talk about the Beckert-Harris change equation that helps with pattern disruption and overcoming resistance for individuals. But that kind of thing, like the 7 stages of law firm leadership, was looking at it and going, what are the patterns here? Now, this doesn't mean that every single law firm owner has to march through the 7 stages or has to follow the revenue per employee model 100%. It is always the exceptions that help prove the rules. But patterns help so much. So, those are the people I'm speaking to.
Well, it's working with law firm owners is one of those things where, we go to law school and then we come out, we hang our own shingle, we go work for a firm, and then we go start our own firm. And, the thing we don't always understand is business and marketing.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
make,
Yeah.
and so it's great to have those who step in to help lead us and teach us. But, one thing I want to talk to you about, I know, well, one, it was your birthday recently, so happy birthday.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
But one thing I know I commented on when I saw your social media is you launched this book, and I want to talk about your book
Yeah.
and how you got to writing a book. They don't teach this in law school, and
Mm-hmm.
I know also that on the book launch day was kind of a crazy day for you. So, the process of writing a book, as I know now from going through this process, is an extremely challenging process. I want you to talk about the challenges that you faced, the hurdles that you kind of had to face and overcoming to actually push publish, and then
Yeah.
ultimately the release date and kind of how things went down for you.
You're just like, let's toss some salt on that wound a little bit here. No, I love telling this story because I think it's legitimately informative. So, yeah, so I've had this podcast. They don't teach this in law school, a couple iterations of it for a few years now. And when I started Law Firm Alchemy, I really focused on doing interview episodes with other people, sort of like what you and I are doing right here. And we're going to have you on the show soon enough as we schedule our next round of interviews. Can't wait to talk with you about that, about what you're doing with AI in the firm and everything. And when it came to writing a book, I have been in chapters of other books. I actually have two other full books that are basically 90% of the way there that just need to be pushed over the finish line. And I had written those before this. But what I realized was in creating a podcast, and by the way, like you should steal this, Chris, you should steal this idea here, was realized, hey, I'm creating all of this incredible content and you have this amazing archive that you've built. And by the way, lots of law firm owners out there who you don't have to have a podcast. You could be shooting videos, you could be writing articles for your website, sending emails, etc. Like that archive, we have this rule that we talk about regularly is how do we make 1 + 1 = 3? So the podcast episode 1 + 1 is I record an episode and it launched and people heard it. That's fantastic. We kind of 1 + 1 = 3 when you have like an interview and now you and I are building a deeper connection here. So now we're kind of making it 3, but maybe I can make it 4 by taking those past episodes and turning them into chapters in a book. So I have my chapters in the book that were taken from episodes that I had recorded, solo episodes, then episodes of other people who we consider the contributors and collaborators on the book. So we made this book launch not just about me as an authorial voice, but about all these 15-ish other collaborators, most of whom are within the legal space. Like, let's really celebrate them. And I'll tell you a trick, Chris, to getting a book written. hire your high school friend to write it for you. So we took some transcripts from everything, and his job, Brian Austin, my co-author on it, his job was to mold these chapters to feel like chapters that come from the person who was the guest on the show, and then the chapters that were mine. Now I went through, did revisions, but I also want to celebrate the contributions Brian had there. And that helped us get it over the finish line. Now, dude, getting a book over the finish line, 2 out of 10 don't recommend. What ended up happening, you alluded, Chris, to launch day. So we're working with this publisher, and because I'm going to kind of say some unkind things, I'm going to avoid naming names. Like there are great reasons to use this publisher, but I don't know that I would use them going forward, at least for like a serious book launch. So we launched the book on the day. And let's be honest, when you launch the book, you got it on Amazon, you've built up all of these social media posts that the collaborators are going to share. You've got your email list that you're blasting out to, your own social media. All of that is built up for purchases on day one. Because what do you want to see? You want to see that you're a #1 Amazon bestseller in your weird niche category, but it's still an Amazon #1 bestseller, daggone it. And we managed to crack the top 100 in marketing of all categories. But here's the thing. I suspect that we may have gotten as close as number 30 on the marketing. But we didn't have our Amazon author pages properly set up before the launch. So Chris, when your book launches, make sure that yours are set up. I'm sure your publishing house will take care of it for you. But if not, just needle them ahead of time. Like, can we make sure that's lined up? You don't get your rankings unless that is set up. And here was the issue. The publishing company told me, oh, don't worry. It takes just like 24 hours after sales occurring, and then you'll start seeing your ranking. So at first I was like, okay, sure. So you better believe 24 hours after the first recorded sale, according to someone telling me that they bought it, I went in there and I'm like pressing refresh, right? I'm like, come on, what's my listing? It's not showing up. 3 hours after that, refresh. It's not showing. Something is wrong here. I start doing all the research. Turns out we need the Amazon author page set up, which in most cases might take a week to properly set up. So at this point, I'm like, well, there go my statistics. Because here's the other thing, Chris, is if I'm going to make the claim of like an Amazon #1 bestseller, I'm not going to do it because I believe it happened. I want the screenshot. I want to see that it happened, right? I want to, there's a level of decency in doing that. I realize it's not like a New York Times bestseller, right? It's still just an Amazon weird niche bestseller, but you take your wins where you get them. And you'll get those wins when you publish your book and you record them. Thankfully, it seemed like we got fast tracked on Amazon. We were able to claim, #1 status in one of the categories, #2 in another, and just outside of the top 50 in marketing overall, which was like a huge win for the book. But boy, oh boy, it was a heck of a week. Good luck to you when you have your Amazon launch.
Well, if I remember correctly too from the post, I think your dog had to go to the vet or something. You had to.
Oh my God. Yeah. That morning of the book launch, holy smokes. 2 days before that, my dog is vomiting and, it's out both ends, right? We literally, it was either the night prior or 2 nights before that, my wife and I had the conversation about the dog. Like, I think the dog needs to sleep in our room. We're going to have the kids sleep in our room as well. And we're going to cross our fingers that we don't wake up to a cold body. Because our dog's 15 years old. So she's pretty old. You hit something like this and, it can end up being sudden and fatal. She ended up carrying through. I actually didn't even need to go to that vet appointment. It turned out she was going to be fine. But, when you're trying to be a responsible father and you want to reassure your wife and your kids and you're like, fine, I will take the dog it's my book launch day, but sure, I will take the dog to the vet because my wife's a nurse. She's got to go and handle that. She's taking care of people. So dad's going to roll up in jeans and a t-shirt and just deal with it. And hey, lemons from lemonade. It becomes a social media post that ends up being a totally unique book launch story.
Yeah, I loved it. I know I followed it. I was dying, but so let's talk about.
So was my dog. Sorry, I had to get that pun in there.
Oh boy, we might have to edit that one now. So I know you're married. You got 2 daughters, man, girl, dad. CEO, founder, author, podcast host. How do you do it all?
I don't know, Chris. How do you do it, man? Like, let's be honest. Like, yeah, right. Like dad to dad, you do your best, right? You do your best. I think one thing that I'm fairly good at with my kids, with my wife, it's easier with the kids sometimes than with your spouse, right? Because with the kids, they're only learning the version of you, like as they're getting older, they're getting to see the version that has gone through the most personal development and isn't sort of backfilling the like, yeah, I wasn't as good at this 15, 20 years ago, but please, I am figuring it out now. I am getting better. So the communication can be easier. Um, but trying to communicate with the family and sort of saying like, hey, dad's prioritizing X, Y, and Z right now. I absolutely love being with you all. But at the same time, as a father, I'm trying to demonstrate, yes, it is very much about family, but it's also about who you are as an individual. Like it's tough. I kind of say, obviously, I want my kids to always have a blast with me. I want to be a place that is secure and loving and nurturing, but I do not want them to be addicted to that. Right. I want them to go and find themselves, find their own pursuits, their own passions, their own failures, their own successes. And so, as best as possible in trying to manage it, some level of communication, telling everyone I'm going to try and get better about the communication. And I promise you one thing, I will fail at it at times. So, being honest about that. And then, one of the great bits of advice about work-life balance is it's not about balance. It's about focusing on the thing you're supposed to be focusing on. If I am at soccer practice because I talk about wanting to be there and to see Cassidy, my 8-year-old, excel in soccer, am I actually watching her play soccer or am I diddling around on my phone and, like instead of giving myself the freedom to just focus on this moment in time, because those moments won't be there forever. But at the same time, like when I'm here with Chris and I'm talking with Chris, I don't want to think about like what's my kid's schedule like, when is pickup going to happen. I'm just here for this. It's that level of presence. It fails sometimes, but we try, right? Like that's what we're doing as dads, right?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, it's why I always start my day, and I always talk about how I won't touch the phone. I keep the phone away. I don't want it to be a distraction. I want to be present in that moment. And once
That's
you
smart.
reach for something, have something else, all of a sudden your mind starts shifting and your mind goes somewhere else. So it's important to put that down. Let's talk about specifically when you're coaching clients
Mm.
and, obviously law firm owners, they're trying to do it all. I know when I first started my firm, I was the director of HR, the director of finance, the director of operations.
Oh
I
yeah.
was the front desk receptionist. I was a trash man. I was the cleaning
Yeah.
person. I did every job in the firm. And then, oh, by the way, I still had to go home to my wife and kids, make them a priority, be present there,
Mhm.
and all those types of things. So when you're coaching clients, you know, how do you kind of coach them through how to handle all that? And then eventually, where we're going to go with this conversation is involving into being truly the CEO of their law firm and what that really
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah, and I'll have some fun opinions on the whole CEO discussion, I'll tell you that much. So, yeah, in terms of like how do the law firm owners adapt to this? The first thing, very similar to what we've kind of talked about, is know that you are developing a new pattern. And most importantly, you're trying to develop a new identity, a new sense of self. You mentioned earlier, Chris, that obviously law school doesn't prepare you for the business, the marketing side of starting a law firm. It teaches you to be a fantastic practitioner. Well, and not even practitioner. It teaches you to be knowledgeable of the law with a pathway into practicing, right? The act of starting your own law firm is a choice to embrace a different type of identity. And the hardest thing to do is decide whether or not you made the right choice, which is that identity of being the entrepreneur, which, again, as you said, it occupies so many territories. It evolves over time, thank goodness, and we'll get into that. But at first, it's this okay, I decided to take a different path in life. I decided to accept the level of risk in my life in order to create new reward that is risking my time in order to gain more time, risking my money to gain more money. And it's for the right person, it is the perfect choice. For folks like you and me, it is the only choice, perhaps, that could ever be made on this path because we're just not built any other way. I can't be an employee. I'm ill suited for it. I did my time there. I did my best. I did it quite well, and I worked as an intrapreneur for a long time. But we have a lot of opinions, us entrepreneurs, and we want things done our way. And the best thing that you can do is the earlier you get on a journey of growth, the better. And the earlier you can break through that acceptance that you don't know it all, the things you have seen demonstrated to you in the past are perhaps not the correct path to go. So that previous law firm or two that you worked in, the public defender's office, just because they did it that way, just because they felt high and mighty about certain aspects of the law, doesn't mean you need to hold those preconceptions. You need to find your philosophy and your principles to anchor against. Otherwise, the storm weather that is associated with entrepreneurship, the storm weather is general, the natural disaster energy that is associated with running an enterprise is something you can only weather if you are anchored and tethered by strong principles for yourself. Not even the principles of business, those are important, but principles of who you are and what you're trying to achieve in life and who you're achieving it for, which, let me just say to everyone out there, it is my, I'll say, experience and opinion that if you are not doing it for yourself, it's going to fail. You can be as noble as you want, but at the end of the day, there is a part of the human being that is selfish. And I encourage everyone to find part of that selfishness and embrace it. Don't run from it. There's a great quote. I believe it's an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote, and I always get it wrong, but the general gist of it is the sign of sort of a high-minded or intelligent individual is the ability to hold two competing ideas in equal regard in your mind. I can be, as a human being, extraordinarily selfish and extraordinarily selfless at the same time. So, for example, in our mastermind group, we set aside 10% of all the fees that we receive for our mastermind group in Law Firm Alchemy to give away to charities at every single meeting. So we have 3 meetings a year, so it's divided up into a third. And so we're giving away money at every single meeting to charities. That obviously feels selfless, but it was, quite frankly, Chris, it was born out of a simple question of, how do I set my mastermind group apart? Well, that's one path that could set it apart, and is probably going to attract the type of people that I would really like to attract. And that's fantastic. So selfless, selfish at the same time. So yeah, you have all of those principles that you're working with when you are starting a law firm and you're on your growth path. And, you know, to your question, to your point about your director of HR, IT, all these other things, delegate. The first hire I made in my business was a bookkeeper. I did not want to do that. As soon as tax season came around, I hired an accountant to take care of it. I'm not gonna mess with that. Whatever. It's like $1,200, $1,500 to have that taken care of. Another $1,000 for my personal taxes. Yeah, okay. Please take care of that. I can go make $2,500 a lot more comfortably than I can deal with the insanity of my, financial numbers. I want to see my P&Ls. I want to see my cash flow statements. I want to see all of that stuff, but get that off my plate. I hired an executive assistant early on. I didn't want to be involved in my emails. Chris, here's an honest admission. I would rather do a complex like sales call for a huge project than ever send someone the scheduling information for that call. Like you put $100,000 on the line, cool. You put $10 on the line, like a $10 per hour task of needing to schedule my own calendar, I freaking panic. I want to crawl under the desk and make it go away. So I made it go away by buying that expertise. So do that early on, invest in getting that work off of your plate. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, right? Maybe. That's an easy one among all of us. Read that book, start utilizing the replacement ladder, all of that. It's great advice. It gets more complex as you go on, but that is the best starting framework I suggest.
Absolutely. It all rings so true to me. That book is, it's been a game changer, life changer for me and how I do it and amazing. But you talked about standing out. I can't have you on and not talk about some kind of marketing, right? But you talked about standing out. You talked about how, like your business has to stand out. And look, there's more and more law firm coaching companies that are out Absolutely. There now. There's more and more keep popping up and more people keep, marketing to attorneys. So you have to stand out, but businesses have to stand out. Law firms have to stand out. And you talked about one thing that you do so that your mastermind group stands out. What is that thing that you would, best advice you'd give to, business owners, law firm owners about standing out and finding that kind of that unique thing for them? Because in today's day and time, right, we have podcasts, we can write books, we can do social media, there's just all these different avenues now. You have AI in the marketplace now, and ChatGPT and search engines and Google, and it's just the world is so changing, evolving. So what's the one thing that you tell people that they really need to be looking at to stand out, to be different?
You mentioned before the show, you were like, hey, feel free to just talk as long as you want. You've like unlocked a certain beast here, Chris. This is your mistake. Listeners, blame the loquaciousness on Chris, solely on Mr. Chris Keller. So I'll do my best to have the kind of one thing anchored against read the book Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. Now, you can only get that book through my buddy Brian Kurtz, and it is an expensive book. So if you're afraid of spending $150 on just a book, sorry, I can't help you, man. But if you're serious about this, if you want to take the best advice possible, go grab a copy of that. His organization, Titans Accelerator, you go and you find that and you invest in it. But I'll give away some of the trade secrets right here because I've read the book. I love the book. And you can find some of this information is online as well. So it's not like I'm taking proprietary stuff and putting it out there. But what he talks about in there are different levels of market sophistication, because one of the hardest things he has to do is to stand out. And we could get really tactical and I could say, hey, you should every 30 days add a new platform to your repertoire, get really focused on like LinkedIn for 30 days, publish on LinkedIn, build your audience, figure out if it's right for you, then play the and game on marketing. This to me, Chris, is so important, is an and philosophy. Most people play with an or philosophy, like, well, I can do YouTube or LinkedIn. Why not and? Oh, I can do community events or I can send a print newsletter. Why not both? Oh, I'm a print newsletter person or I'm an email newsletter person. I do both, daggone it. Like, I want to cover multiple platforms. You want to stand out, omnipresence helps. And it's like you have this awesome larger firm. You have access to advertising resources that would undoubtedly be able to put you on airwaves. You can blanket spaces with larger scale advertising overall. So if people are looking at like the Keller Swans of the world and going, well, Chris is just going to kick my butt up and down the street. Well, if you have that attitude, yes, he absolutely is. But if you go, well, I can still find my people through platforms like personal Facebook pages. I'm a big believer in a personal Facebook page, Chris. Local marketing, so many reasons to do it. Dark social advantages. Conrad Somm talks about that as well. LinkedIn, YouTube, an email list. There are all these spaces that you can reach an audience and build your level of omnipresence with. Maybe it's not with a community of 400,000 people through broadcasting on the airwaves. Maybe it's a community of 400 people, but those 400 people are great referral sources and see you as a celebrity, and that can be just as valuable. So that's part of it. But if we look at the Eugene Schwartz Breakthrough Advertising and the market sophistication, for a firm like yours, you're going to be in what he would consider a level 5 market of sophistication. And that is, there's a lot of competitors. It's hard to stand out just by saying that you have something like a unique mechanism, that you have more results, bigger results, outlandish results than others, because others are making those claims. What he puts forth is in a level 5 sophistication, which is what my coaching business is in. It's all about the identity of the person to whom you are advertising. Do they see themselves represented? And this isn't in the like Tom's shoes, we have a mission that you're going to latch yourself onto. It's really about who you are as a human being. It's like a workers' compensation attorney in a blue collar area. And I try and get all of them to do this and they have the hardest time doing it, which is your advertising should basically say, did you get screwed over as a hardworking American when you thought you were a good company person? Right? Like that's the type of language that needs to be used. Whereas most people still are saying like, we got such and such a verdict, which is great. You should have that stuff as well. But who are your people? And there may be different market segments, like the law firms that might refer clients to you, the way that you treat their level of sophistication and the messaging to them would look different than you might with, someone who's been in a car accident, who, if you know that in our region, people have a certain view of insurance companies. Well, let's play into that. That's that language, that identity concept, rather than just doing the same old, though social proof, all that stuff still matters. So long-winded answer to a one-piece question, but like that book and that concept of omnipresence is so valuable.
Yeah. So kind of in one of the things I always kind of talk about again is rising and transforming. You are it seems to be a consistent learner. You're reading books. You've dropped a lot of books for people to read, and I hope they go pick those up. So what are some of the other things that you do in order to continue to transform yourself so that you can continue to show up as the best version of yourself?
Physical health is really important for me. And I know you have your journey of physical health. I see you like recording some of your runs and everything. Man, you're out there, triathlons. Those are so cool, man. I love seeing that stuff. And your story's just fantastic. That transformation, like I love seeing those transformation stories. And so that physical health, putting in that effort, like earlier today. So literally, let's see here, as we're recording this 2 hours ago, I was on my bike on a 10-mile bike ride, right? Because I know for me, this morning was a little bit crowded with some family time and everything like that. And I wanted to be present and honor that. And I knew that. So I have my folks actually arriving to our house later today to celebrate the birthday, also the baptism of our newest niece. So we've got all of that going on. So I'm not going to be able to work out at that point because my parents are early morning workout people. So they've already worked out. And otherwise, we go and work out in my garage gym together. So I got to do it at some point. Well, that's what the lunch hour is going to be. I'm going to go for a 10-mile bike ride. I'm going to hop into my garage gym. I'm going to do about 20 minutes of hypertrophy training because that keeps me energized. If I have my physical health, if I'm taking care of that, a lot of other things naturally fall into place, including my mental health. My mental health tends to follow my physical health more than my physical health following my mental health. Now, I know for some people, the opposite is true, where their physical health follows mental health. And for those people, like prioritize your mental health. What are the habits that you're keeping? I'll be honest, I feel very fortunate, Chris, that I have the physical health comes first, like whatever, however that is running in my brain, like why, however that connection happened. I'm deeply grateful for that because at least for me, it feels easier for me to just go and like sit on a stationary bike and go, fine, I'll start pedaling this daggone thing. And then, the rest of it starts to follow. Mental health, when you have that block, it is much harder to just say like, fine, I'll do a minute of meditation. I'll do a minute of prayer. Like that is so much harder, at least to me, than just sitting on a stationary bike. So I'm grateful for that. But if you have the mental health side, at least for me, time for prayer is really important, or meditation or whatever form that takes for you. But that kind of going beyond yourself. I'll recommend another book to kind of help for those who are on the mental health side. The Untethered Soul is a wonderful book that helps you observe yourself from a third person perspective. And so you can start saying things like, oh, Charley is experiencing some anxiety right now. But that's not really like Charley's exterior self, just his emotional triggered self is experiencing that. But the reality of this situation is really that Charley is in this situation and has these options for himself. And it's a game changing perspective. But yeah, physical health is my anchor.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's gone for me. Once I tackled the physical side of it and I had exercise and movement into my routine, everything
Yeah.
else stemmed from and followed that. When I felt better about myself physically and how I was performing, then, obviously I was in a in a better mindset mentally, emotionally. Now spiritually has been big. For those who want to find you or connect with you or find or buy your book, because I know that they need to and should, what's the best ways to connect and contact you and how can they find the book and your
Yeah. So
podcast?
if you, yeah. And the nice thing is, you look up the podcast, you might find the book. You look up the book, you might find the podcast. Both of them are titled, They Don't Teach This in Law School. And like the name implies, we're just talking about subjects that they don't teach in law school. Sometimes it is mindset oriented, sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's hiring, sometimes it's culture. Had a lot of really cool guests. We share some guests, guys like Seth Price have been on both of our shows and everything. And soon enough, you'll be on the show as well. So go check out They Don't Teach Us in Law School. As they say in the big podcast, it's on every single platform. You can find my book on Amazon. Those are great places to start. Otherwise, connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on Facebook. I am in the places. I am easy to find.
Awesome. And Charlie, I appreciate your time today. I know you have a lot going on, so thank you for making some time for us today.
Absolutely, Chris. Always a treat to talk with you.
Awesome. Hey, man, appreciate it. It sounds like you got a lot going on. So your parents are in town, so not the in-laws, but your parents are in town, so you got a lot going on.
Oh yeah, man. We're plenty active. I'm gonna go play golf with them tomorrow morning. Then we'll probably go to the pool. Then all of Sunday is spent celebrating the baptism.
Awesome.
It's nice and active. It's great. I'm grateful for it, right?
That's where I start my day, was gratitude. I started it with this morning on the Peloton, and I sent it a message. We have our Peloton crew.
Love it.
Our Peloton crew is came up to 7 now. So I was used to ride on my own. Then one of the attorneys in my office, Chris Kellum, and I started riding together. Now all of a sudden we're at 7 people at 5:30 in the morning riding the Peloton. So yeah,
Ooh, that's pretty. I mean, that's like okay. So you have about like 8-9% of your team rocking on your
right.
Peloton
We're
crew
on
at
the
this
Peloton.
point.
I love it.
That's so cool, man. I mean, what a cool way to start the day. What a team oriented way to start the day. Yeah, it's funny with exercise. I love the idea of getting it first thing in the morning, but for me, kind of getting my head on right. There's this old Dan Kennedyism of the first hour should be for yourself, and he talks about that regarding businesses in particular. Like, and this is good advice for everyone, right? Is if you give the first hour of the business day to yourself and working on the business, it's a really valuable hour. And if you need to squeeze that in between 5 and 6 a.m., you'll find it to be transformative. You're working on the future rather than addressing the present. Like when I started doing that more often, that's what helped me write books. That's what's helped me write sales letters. That's what's helped me develop programs. It's just that hour of like your brain is totally, at least for me, my brain's totally refreshed at that point. Someone pressed that reset button. I wake up and all the preconceived stuff from the day before is gone. I also try and, before I go to bed, I try and mentally do what I call settling the score, which is basically determining if I don't wake up the next morning, have I done life relatively right? Like that's my viewpoint on life. I settle that score and go, okay, done this. Yeah, I did that. That wasn't the best version of me, but I know that I'm still trying. And okay, all right. If I go to bed tonight, I don't wake up, we're good. We're good. All right, I'm happy enough. And that way, the next morning, I'm not holding on to the past stuff as best as possible.
I love it. It's great advice. Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Appreciate it. Charlie, thank you for bringing the energy, clarity, and insight to today's episode. You've shown us that transformation in business always begins with transformation in ourselves. For our listeners, whether you're running a firm, leading a team, or navigating your own growth, take this as your sign. You don't have to stay stuck in survival mode. You can build with intention, lead with vision, and scale with confidence. To connect more with Charlie, visit lawfirmalchemy.com or check out his podcast, They Don't Teach This in Law School. Thanks again for tuning in to First Lot, and as always, keep shining your light.